The observation station floated at the edge of human space like a silent witness. It was called the Pale Witness, and it belonged to the Galactic Council. From here, diplomats and officials watched the border that no one dared to cross. Ambassador stood before the large window, his insect-like body clicking with nervous energy. He had 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in many directions at once, but right now, all his attention was fixed on the empty darkness beyond the glass. Somewhere out there was human territory. Somewhere out there, 17 ships had vanished without a trace. The door behind him opened with a soft hiss, turned to see 2 humans enter the room. The first was a woman with short black hair and eyes that held no warmth. She wore a military uniform with the symbol of a lightning bolt surrounded by stars. Behind her walked a tall man with a serious face and hands that rested near the weapon on his belt. "Ambassador," the woman said. Her voice was calm but cold. "I am Captain Park of the Border Patrol vessel Silent Thunder. This is my tactical officer, Lieutenant. You requested this meeting." Clicked his mandibles together, a sign of respect in his culture. "Captain Park, thank you for agreeing to speak with me. The Galactic Council has many questions." Did not sit down. She stood with her hands behind her back and her spine straight like a metal rod. "Ask your questions, Ambassador. I have duties to return to." "Very well," pulled up a holographic display from his wrist device. 17 faces appeared in the air between them. Some were reptilian, some were furred, some had no faces at all but were represented by symbols. Over the past 10 years, 17 ships from 12 different species have entered human-controlled space. None of them returned. No wreckage was ever found. No distress signals were ever received. They simply disappeared. Lieutenant shifted his weight but said nothing. His eyes moved to Captain, waiting for her response. Looked at the faces floating in the air. Her expression did not change. They were warned. "Warned?" Voice rose with frustration. "Captain, the trading vessel Bright Fortune had 40 crew members. The science ship Truthseeker had 60 researchers aboard. They were all warned," interrupted. "Every ship that approaches human space receives the same message. Do not enter without invitation. If you enter, you will not return. The message is clear. The message is simple. They chose to ignore it." Spread all 4 of his arms in a gesture of confusion. "But why? What happens to them? The Galactic Council demands answers. Families want to know the fate of their loved ones. Governments want to know if their citizens are alive or dead." For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. It might have been pain. It might have been anger. It was gone before could identify it. "Have you ever heard of New Soul, Ambassador?" Searched his memory. "A human colony world. I believe there was some incident there many years ago." "Some incident?" His voice became quieter, which somehow made it more frightening. 32 years ago, raiders from the Syndicate entered human space. They thought humans were weak. They thought humans were easy targets. They landed on New Soul during the Harvest Festival, when families were gathered in the streets to celebrate. She paused. The silence in the room grew heavy. 40,000 humans died that night. Men, women, children. The raiders killed them for sport. They broadcast the screams across their communication channels so other ships could hear. They laughed as our people burned. His hands had formed into fists at his sides. His jaw was tight with controlled rage. "The Galactic Council did nothing," continued. "They called it an internal matter. They said humans should have defended themselves better. They offered no justice, no punishment, no help. So humanity learned a lesson that night. We learned that no one would protect us. We learned that we had to protect ourselves." "The Treaty of Quiet Borders," said softly. He remembered now. After New Soul, humans had withdrawn from most galactic affairs. They had closed their borders and built their defenses in silence. "Yes, the treaty states that human space is sovereign territory. Any ship that enters without permission is considered a hostile invader. There are no exceptions. There are no second chances." stepped closer to, and despite being smaller than him, she seemed to fill the room with her presence. We told everyone what would happen. We begged them to stay away. We gave them every opportunity to turn back. They chose to enter anyway. Whatever happened to them is the result of their own choices. His communication device suddenly buzzed with an urgent signal. He looked down at it, and his compound eyes widened with alarm. "What is it?" asked, speaking for the first time. "A war fleet," said. His voice trembled. 12 warships under the command of Warlord. They are heading directly for human space. They have ignored all warnings from the Council and exchanged a look. Something passed between them that could not read. "They are powerful," said urgently. "They have conquered 17 worlds. Their weapons are advanced. Their warriors are brutal. Captain, perhaps this time you should allow the Council to intervene. Perhaps we can negotiate." "No," his voice cut through the air like a blade. "They were warned. Like all the others, they were warned. But 12 warships, surely even humans cannot." Ambassador turned toward the door, fell into step behind her. "In 3 days you will have your answer about what happens to ships that enter our space without permission. Watch carefully, and then tell the Council what you see." "What will I see?" called after her. Stopped at the door. She looked back over her shoulder and for a moment saw something ancient and terrible in her eyes, something that made his blood run cold. "Nothing," she said. "You will see nothing at all." The door closed behind her, and was left alone with the faces of the 17 vanished crews floating in the air before him. Outside the window, human space stretched out like a dark ocean with no bottom. Somewhere in that darkness, 12 warships were sailing toward their fate, and realized with growing horror that he might be about to witness the number of missing ships rise to 29. The warship Conquest Eternal cut through space like a predator hunting for prey. It was a massive vessel, bristling with weapons and armored with plates thick enough to stop most attacks. Behind it, 11 more warships followed in perfect formation. Together, they formed the most powerful fleet Warlord had ever commanded. Stood on the bridge of his flagship, his reptilian scales gleaming under the harsh lights. He was tall even for a, with scars across his face that told stories of battles won. His yellow eyes stared at where the border of human space was now visible as a thin red line on the navigation display. "Warlord," Subcommander approached from behind, his voice careful. "We will reach the human border in 6 hours. Perhaps we should review the intelligence reports one more time." Let out a low growl of annoyance. "You have shown me those reports 50 times. I grow tired of your fear." "It is not fear, Warlord, it is caution." Activated a holographic display. Data streamed across it in lines of text and images. "In the past 10 years, 17 ships have entered human space without permission. Not one has returned. Not one has sent a distress signal. Not one piece of wreckage has ever been found." "Weak ships from weak species," said with contempt. "Trading vessels, science ships, scouts with barely any weapons. We have conquered 17 worlds. Our fleet has never known defeat." "The destroyer was not weak," said quietly. "It was a military vessel with 300 warriors aboard. It vanished like all the others." Turned to face his subcommander. His eyes narrowed with anger. "Are you suggesting that humans, those soft pink creatures with their fragile bodies, could defeat they have no visible fleet? Our long-range scans show no defense stations, no weapons platforms, no armies waiting for us. Their space is empty." "That is what concerns me, Warlord. It is too empty. Where are their defenses? Where are their ships?" "Hidden away because they are afraid." Laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "The humans are famous for their fear. They hide behind their borders and their warnings because they know they cannot fight. Their reputation is nothing but stories, legends created to scare away cowards." Lowered his head in submission, but his worry did not leave his face. "As you say, Warlord, but perhaps we should send a scout ship first. Test their defenses before committing the full fleet." No, slammed his fist against the command console. We go in together with full force. When the galaxy sees the fleet emerge victorious from human space, every species will know that the legends were lies. The Galactic Council will bow to us. New territories will surrender without fighting. This is not just a military mission. This is a statement. The bridge crew remained silent, their eyes fixed on their stations. None of them dared to speak against their warlord, even though many shared concerns. The stories about human space were told in whispers across the galaxy. Ships went in. Ships did not come out. No one knew why. 3 hours later, the fleet approached the final warning zone. A light began blinking on the communications console. "Warlord," the communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the Human Border Patrol." "Put it on screen." The flickered and a young human female appeared. She wore a simple uniform and had a calm expression on her face. Her eyes were dark and steady, showing no fear at the sight of 12 warships. "Fleet, this is Ensign of the Human Border Defense Force. You are approaching sovereign human territory. This is your final warning. Turn back now or you will not return. There will be no further communications. There will be no negotiations. This is your last chance." Walked closer to the screen, his teeth showing in a mocking smile. "Little human, do you know who you are speaking to? I am Warlord of the Empire. I have burned worlds and crushed fleets. Your warnings mean nothing to me." Ensign did not react to his words. Her face remained perfectly still. "You have been warned. The choice is yours." She paused and something flickered in her eyes. It might have been pity. "I am sorry for what will happen to your crew. They did not choose this." Before could respond, the transmission ended. The screen went dark. The bridge was silent. Several crew members exchanged nervous glances. "Arrogant creature," snarled. "She speaks as if she pities us, as if we are the ones in danger." He turned to face his crew. "All ships, increase speed. We cross the border in 1 hour. When we emerge from human space, we will drag that female back to the Empire in chains." The fleet moved forward. The red line on the navigation display grew closer and closer. At exactly the predicted time, the 12 warships crossed into human territory. For a moment nothing happened. The stars looked the same. The space around them was quiet and dark. Then every sensor on every ship went dead at the same time. "Report," roared. "What is happening?" "Unknown, Warlord." The sensor officer frantically worked at his console. "All external sensors have failed. Navigation is offline. We are blind. Communications. Dead, we cannot reach the other ships." Felt something cold crawl down his spine. For the first time in many years, he felt the unfamiliar sensation of fear. "Get those systems back online. Now." The crew worked desperately, but nothing responded. It was as if the ship itself had fallen asleep. Then the lights began to flicker. On and off, a rhythm that felt almost like breathing. Warlord's voice was barely a whisper. His scales had turned pale. "Something is wrong. Something is very wrong." Through the darkness of the flickering bridge stared at the. It showed nothing but empty space, silent and black. But somewhere in that blackness he could feel it. Something was watching them. Something was waiting. And then, from somewhere deep within the ship, came a sound that made every freeze. A scream cut short. Then silence. The lights went out completely, and the Conquest Eternal drifted forward into the hungry darkness of human space. Outside, the other 11 ships were experiencing the same thing. One by one, they fell silent. One by one, they went dark. And in the observation station at the edge of human territory, Ambassador watched the 12 signals vanish from his screen, exactly as Captain had promised. He saw nothing. Nothing at all. Warlord opened his eyes to darkness. He was lying on the cold metal floor of his own bridge. His head ached with a dull pain and his muscles felt weak. He did not know how long he had been unconscious. Minutes, hours, days. Slowly, he pushed himself up to a sitting position. The emergency lights had activated, casting everything in a dim red glow. The shadows seemed deeper than normal, pooling in the corners like black water. His voice came out rough and dry. "Report, anyone, report." Silence answered him. Climbed to his feet and looked around the bridge. The stations were empty. Every single crew member was gone. Their chairs sat abandoned, their consoles flickering with broken displays. It was as if everyone had simply vanished while he slept. "This is Warlord," he said into his communication device. "All crew, respond immediately. This is a direct order." Static, nothing but static. He tried the ship-wide announcement system. Dead. He tried to contact the other 11 ships. Nothing. He tried to reach anyone, anything. The Conquest Eternal was silent as a tomb. Moved through the corridors of his ship, and with every step, his fear grew stronger. The halls that once held hundreds of warriors were empty. Food sat half-eaten in the dining areas. Weapons lay abandoned in the armory. Personal items were scattered on beds as if their owners had left in the middle of the night. But there was no sign of violence, no blood, no damage, no evidence of any struggle. His crew had simply disappeared. Shouted into the red darkness, "Answer me." His voice echoed back to him, mocking and hollow. Then he heard something. A soft sound like fabric moving against metal. It came from somewhere behind him. Spun around, his weapon raised. The corridor stretched out in the red emergency light, empty and still. "Who is there?" he demanded. "Show yourself." Nothing moved, nothing answered. But could feel it, a presence, something watching him from the shadows, something patient and cold. He continued walking, faster now. His warrior training told him to stay calm, to think clearly. But the silence was worse than any battle. In battle, you could see your enemy. You could fight back. Here, there was nothing to fight, nothing to see. Just darkness and the feeling of being hunted. He reached the medical bay and stopped. The door was partially open, and a faint light came from inside. Raised his weapon and pushed the door open with his foot. Was sitting in a chair in the corner. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. He was alive, but something was wrong. His scales had turned completely white and his body trembled without stopping. Rushed to his subcommander's side. "What happened? Where is the crew?" Turned his head slowly. His eyes focused on and his mouth opened. But instead of words, only a whimper came out, the sound of a frightened animal. "Speak," grabbed by the shoulders. We do not fear. Tell me what happened." They came." His voice was barely a whisper. From the shadows, from the walls, from nowhere, you could not see them, you could not hear them. One moment someone was there. The next moment, gone. Who came?" The humans began to laugh, a terrible broken sound. The soft pink creatures, the weak ones, they moved through us like ghosts. They took us one by one, and we could do nothing. Nothing. The lights flickered, screamed and pulled away from, curling into a ball in the corner. "No more, please, no more. I will do anything, just no more darkness." Backed away from his broken sub-commander, the greatest warrior of his generation, reduced to a crying child. What could do this to what power could break the mind of someone who had conquered worlds? Then a voice came from the speakers. It was calm and quiet, almost gentle, a human voice. "Warlord." Raised his weapon, pointing it at nothing. "Who are you? Where are you? You were warned, your crew was warned. You chose not to listen. Show yourself, coward. Face me like a warrior." "We are not warriors." The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We are something else, something you should have feared." The temperature in the room dropped. Could see his breath forming clouds in the air. From the corner of his eye, he thought he saw movement, a shape in the shadows. But when he turned, nothing was there. "Your crew is alive," the voice continued. "Most of them. They will be returned to your people eventually. with no memory of what happened here, but they will carry the fear forever. They will wake up screaming in the night. They will flinch at shadows. They will know deep in their hearts that they were touched by something terrible. Why? His voice cracked. He hated the weakness in it. Why do you do this? Because 32 years ago, your kind came to our world. The gentle tone did not change, but something cold entered it. Because we heard the screams of our children. Because we buried 40,000 of our people and swore that no one would ever hurt us again. That was the we are. We had nothing to do with New Soul. You came to our space with warships. You ignored our warnings. You brought death to our door. A pause. It does not matter who you are, it matters what you chose to do. Something touched his shoulder, something cold and soft, like a whisper made solid. He spun around, firing his weapon into the darkness. The energy blast lit up the room for a moment. He saw figures, dozens of figures in black suits that seemed to absorb light itself. They stood in perfect stillness, surrounding him. Their faces were covered. Their eyes were hidden. Then the light faded, and they were gone. Fired again and again, screaming with rage and terror, but his shots hit nothing. There was no one there. You cannot fight us, the voice said. Not here, this is our space, our darkness. You are prey now, warlord, and the hunt is nearly over. The lights went out completely. Felt hands grab him from every direction, cold hands, silent hands. He tried to fight, but it was like fighting smoke. His weapon was taken, his arms were held, something covered his eyes. Sleep now, the voice whispered, close to his ear. When you wake, you will deliver our message to the galaxy. You will tell them what you felt here, and they will believe you, because they will see the truth in your eyes. Tried to speak, but darkness flooded into his mind. The last thing he heard was the sound of his own heartbeat, thundering with fear. Then nothing. Nothing at all. The station called Echo Grave did not exist on any map. It floated in the deepest part of human space, surrounded by dead stars and empty worlds. No signals came from it. No ships approached it. To the galaxy, it was invisible. Inside, Admiral sat in his command chair and watched the screens before him. 12 warships were displayed as small dots of light, drifting without power in the darkness. Around them, like sharks circling wounded prey, moved the vessels of the silence. Admiral was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served humanity for 40 years, first as a soldier, then as a commander, and now as the keeper of secrets. The things he had done weighed heavily on his soul, but he did them anyway because he remembered New Soul. He remembered the screams. "Report," he said quietly. Commander stepped forward. She was the head of the Silence, the special unit that humanity never spoke about. Her face was young, but her eyes were old. "Operation complete, Admiral. All 12 vessels have been secured. Crew members are being processed now." "Casualties?" "None on our side. 37 died from heart failure during the operation. Fear response. Their bodies could not handle the stress." Paused. "The rest are alive but broken. It will take months before they can speak clearly again." Nodded slowly. He felt no joy in this, no satisfaction, only the grim necessity of protecting his people. And the warlord? Isolated in holding cell 7. He is conscious now and demanding to see the commander. He still thinks he can threaten us. A small, sad smile crossed face. "Bring him to me." It is time he understood what happened to him. 20 minutes later, Warlord was escorted into the Admiral's office. His hands were bound, and his proud scales had faded to a sickly gray color, but his eyes still burned with defiance. He refused to show weakness, even now. Gestured to a chair. "Sit, Warlord, we have much to discuss." "I will stand." His voice was rough. "I will not sit like a pet before my enemy." "As you wish," folded his hands on his desk. "Do you know where you are?" "In human territory. Beyond that I care nothing." "You are in a place that does not exist. A place where we bring threats to humanity for processing. Spoke the word carefully, watching's reaction. You wanted to know what happens to ships that enter our space without permission. Now you will learn. Bared his teeth. So you will kill me, torture me. I am not afraid of death. No, you are not, leaned back in his chair. But you are afraid of what you experienced on your ship, the darkness, the silence, the feeling of being hunted by something you could not see or fight. That fear is now part of you. It will never leave. For a moment, defiance wavered. His hands trembled before he forced them still. What are you? He whispered. What did you do to us? Stepped forward. She activated a holographic display that showed images and data. We are the Silence, a special forces unit created 30 years ago after the burning of New Sol. Our purpose is simple. We protect human space from all threats by any means necessary. But how? My sensors showed nothing. My weapons hit nothing. Your people moved through my ship like ghosts. Technology developed in secret for 3 decades changed the display. It showed suits of black material that seemed to drink in light. Our stealth systems absorb all radiation. We are invisible to sensors, to eyes, to everything. We can board a ship without triggering any alarm. We can move through corridors without making any sound. And we are trained in psychological warfare. We know how to break minds without touching bodies. You did not fight us, said slowly. You terrified us. Yes, stood and walked to the window looking out at the stars. After New Sol, we had a choice. We could build a fleet bigger than any other. We could create weapons powerful enough to destroy worlds. We could become warriors like the, meeting violence with violence. He turned to face. But we are human. We think differently. We realize that the best defense is not strength. It is fear. If every species in the galaxy is terrified to enter our space, then no one will attack us. If the stories about human territory are worse than any reality, then we are safer than any army could make us. The 17 ships said, the ones that vanished before us, what happened to them? The same thing that happened to you. We captured them. We broke their minds with fear. We erased their memories of the specific details. Then we returned them to their people. Paused. They remember only darkness and terror. They cannot tell anyone how we did it because they do not know. They just know that something terrible waits in human space. But they lived, seemed surprised. Most of them. We are not monsters, warlord. We do not enjoy causing pain. Every life we take weighs on us. Every mind we break leaves scars on our own souls. His voice grew heavy. But we will do whatever is necessary to protect our people. If that means becoming the most feared species in the galaxy, then so be it. Changed the display again. It showed the crews being led to medical facilities. They walked with blank eyes and trembling bodies. Your crew will be returned to the Empire within 1 month. Their memories will be foggy. They will not remember specifics, but they will never forget the fear. They will tell others. The stories will spread. And me asked. You have a choice. Returned to his desk and sat down. We can return you with the others. You will live, but you will be changed. The warlord who conquered 17 worlds will become a broken shell, flinching at shadows for the rest of his life. Swallowed hard, or you can deliver a message for us. Stand before the Galactic Council. Tell them what you experienced. Tell them that the stories about human space are true. Warn them to stay away. You want me to spread your legend for you? Yes. In exchange, we will help repair some of the psychological damage. You will not be whole again, but you will be functional. You will be able to serve your people. And you will remember exactly what happened here, so your warning will carry weight. Was silent for a long moment. His pride warred with his survival instinct. Finally, he lowered his head. What is the message? Stood and approached. He placed a hand on the warlord's shoulder, almost gently. Tell them this. Humans do not want war. We welcome any ship that comes in peace. We will trade, negotiate, and cooperate with any species that respects our borders. But our home is sacred. 40,000 of our children died because we were once too weak to protect them. Never again." He leaned closer, and his voice dropped to a whisper. "Tell them that no one enters human territory uninvited, and those who do never come back the same. Tell them that the darkness is waiting, and it is always hungry." Looked into the Admiral's eyes and saw something that chilled him to his core. Not madness, not cruelty, something worse. Absolute certainty. The certainty of a species that had looked into the face of extinction and chosen to become the thing that others fear. "I will deliver your message," said. Admiral nodded. "Then we are done here. Commander will prepare you for transport." As was led away, turned back to the window. The stars stared back at him, cold and indifferent. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning to fear humanity. And while the weight of what he had done pressed down on his shoulders, he accepted it. Because his children, and their children, and all the generations to come, would grow up safe. That was worth any price. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest meeting hall in known space. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species filled the circular room, their bodies of every shape and color. Some floated in water tanks. Some hung from the ceiling. Some sat in specially designed chairs that matched their strange forms. All of them were silent. They were waiting to hear from Warlord. Ambassador stood near the front of the chamber, his compound eyes fixed on the center stage. 6 months had passed since the fleet vanished into human space. 6 months of rumors, whispers, and growing fear. Today, they would finally hear the truth. The doors opened and walked in. The chamber gasped. This was not the powerful warlord who had conquered 17 worlds. This was a shadow of that creature, walked slowly, his shoulders bent, his scales dull and gray. His eyes, once burning with ambition, now held only a hollow emptiness. He looked like someone who had seen something that could never be unseen. Behind him, 2 humans entered the chamber. One was Captain Park, wearing her formal uniform. The other was an older woman with silver hair and a calm face. Her nameplate identified her as Counselor Ha, senior human diplomat. Approached the speaking platform. His claws gripped the edges for support. When he spoke, his voice was thin and tired. "Representatives of the Galactic Council, I have come to give testimony about what happened to my fleet, about what happens to all ships that enter human space without permission." He paused, his body trembled slightly. "I commanded 12 warships and over 3,000 warriors. We were the pride of the Empire. We crossed the human border believing that the stories were lies. We believed that humans were weak, that their warnings were empty threats." Closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there were tears on his scales. "We were wrong." The chamber remained absolutely silent. Every being leaned forward, desperate to hear. "I cannot tell you exactly what happened. My memories are broken, fragmented like shattered glass." His voice shook. "But I remember the darkness. I remember the silence. I remember being hunted." He looked up at the thousands of faces watching him. They came from nowhere. You could not see them. You could not hear them. One moment a warrior stood beside you. The next moment he was gone. No sound, no struggle, just gone. My crew of 3,000 vanished around me while I stood helpless. "But you survived," a council member called out. "Your crew was returned. How?" "Because they chose to let us live," laughed bitterly. "That is the worst part. They could have killed us all. Every single one of us was completely in their power, but death was not their purpose. They wanted us alive. They wanted us to remember the fear. They wanted us to come back and tell you what we experienced." He pointed a trembling claw at the assembly. "I am their message. Look at me. I conquered 17 worlds. I was called the terror of the outer rim. And now I cannot sleep without screaming. I jump at shadows. I hear whispers in empty rooms. They broke something inside me that will never heal." Turn to look at. who stood with her hands clasped behind her back. I came to human space with weapons and warriors. They answered with darkness and fear, and they won without ever fighting. Not a single shot was fired, not a single blade was drawn. They simply reached into our minds and crushed us. The chamber erupted in worried voices. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Some called for action against humans. Others called for immediate negotiations. The noise grew and grew. Then Counselor raised her hand. Slowly, the chamber fell silent. She walked to the speaking platform with graceful steps. Her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the vast room. Representatives of the Galactic Council, I understand your fear. I understand your anger, but I ask you to listen before you judge. She turned to face the assembly fully. 32 years ago, raiders came to our colony world of New Sol. They killed 40,000 of our people. Men, women, children. They did it for sport, for amusement. And when we begged the Galactic Council for help, for justice, we were told it was an internal matter. His calm expression did not change, but her eyes hardened. We learned that day that no one would protect us, that we stood alone in a galaxy full of predators. So we made a decision. We would never be victims again. We would build defenses so strong that no one would dare attack us, not because we wanted war, but because we wanted peace. She gestured too. This warlord came to our space with 12 warships. He ignored our warnings. He brought weapons to our door, and yet his crew lives. They will return home to their families. We did not seek to destroy them. We sought only to teach them a lesson. Captain stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but filled with steel. We do not want enemies. We welcome any ship that comes with peaceful intentions. We will trade with you, learn from you, share knowledge and culture. Our borders are open to friends. She paused. But our home is sacred. It is all we have, and we will protect it with everything we are. She looked then at the assembly. We learned our lesson at New Sol. We will never be victims again. We will never watch our children burn while the galaxy looks away. If that means becoming something that others fear, then we accept that burden. We do not enjoy it, but we will carry it. The chamber was silent, found that he could not speak. He had wanted answers. Now he had them, and they were more terrifying than he had imagined. Counselor spread her hands in a gesture of openness. The choice is yours. Come to us in peace and you will find friends. Come to us with weapons. She smiled sadly. Well, you have heard what happens. The voting began an hour later. When it was finished, the result was unanimous. Human space was declared a restricted zone, not by human demand, but by galactic agreement. Every species in the council voted to warn their ships away from human borders. Every government agreed to punish any captain who violated human territory. Not because they respected humans, because they feared them. Found after the session ended, she stood by a window looking out at the stars. Captain, he said, may I ask you something? She nodded without turning. Do you ever regret it, what humanity has become? Was quiet for a long moment. Every day, she finally said, we wanted to be explorers, dreamers. We wanted to reach out to the stars with open hands. Instead, we became something that others fear. She turned to face him. Her eyes held a deep sadness. But I think of the children on New Sol. I think of the 40,000 who died screaming. And I know that I would do it all again to make sure it never happens to another human child. She walked away, leaving alone by the window. Years later, on a distant planet, a young alien child pointed at the night sky. What is that dark area? He asked his parent. Why are there no ships there? His parent pulled him close. That is human space, she whispered. We do not go there. No one goes there. Why? The parent looked at the stars, remembering the stories, remembering's broken voice, remembering the legend that had spread across the galaxy. Because no one enters human territory uninvited, she said softly. And those who do never come back. The child shivered and looked away from the darkness. And somewhere in that darkness, humanity continued to watch. Waiting, protecting, remembering. Always remembering.